Too late to fix it. The Galaxy Council watches as humanity leaves. The massive crystal dome of the Galactic Council chamber stretched hundreds of meters above Ambassador Marcus Reynolds. 300 alien representatives stared down at him from tiered platforms that circled the room like a giant arena. Their varied breathing apparatuses created an eerie symphony of clicks, hisses, and low rumbles that echoed throughout the space. Marcus stood alone on the central platform, a single human facing the most powerful governing body in known space. His simple gray uniform looked plain compared to the ornate robes and biological enhancements of the council members. But despite being surrounded by beings who could order the destruction of entire worlds, Marcus showed no fear. Humanity stands accused of technological violations beyond your authorization level, announced High Counselor Vrex, his reptilian scales shifting from deep blue to angry red. His voice boomed through the chamber without needing amplification. You have developed quantum entanglement communication without oversight or permission. This is a Category 1 violation of your species' development restrictions. The enormous reptilian being rose to his full height of nearly 4 meters, towering over his own section of the council. His ancient eyes, rumored to have witnessed the rise and fall of dozens of civilizations, fixed on the human with unmistakable irritation. You were granted interstellar travel rights merely 50 years ago, continued Vrex. Yet, you have repeatedly accelerated beyond your approved technological path. The Council has been patient, human. We have issued warnings. We have confiscated unauthorized developments. Now we must consider more severe measures. A murmur of agreement rippled through the alien representatives. A floating jellyfish-like being pulsed with bright colors as it spoke through its translator. The humans have established 17 colonies beyond their approved zones, it said. They have mined resources from restricted systems. They have communicated with species not yet cleared for contact. Another council member, a being composed of what looked like living metal, raised a gleaming appendage. Their ships have been detected near dimensional weak points, areas they were specifically warned to avoid. Marcus waited patiently for the accusations to finish. When the chamber finally grew quiet, he straightened his shoulders and looked directly at High Counselor Vrex. With all respect, High Counselor, Marcus said, his calm voice somehow filling the enormous space, we did not come here for judgment. We came to inform you of our departure. Confusion spread through the council chamber. A collective intake of breath, or whatever passed for breathing among the varied species, created a sudden drop in pressure. Clarify your statement. Human, demanded Vrex. Marcus nodded and touched a small device on his wrist. Instantly, holographic displays activated around him, showing images that caused even the most composed council members to react with shock. The displays showed Earth's orbital platforms already disconnecting from galactic beacons. More shocking were the images of thousands of previously unknown human vessels appearing from hidden locations throughout council space, ships with designs far beyond what humanity had ever revealed. For 2 centuries, since first contact, Marcus continued, you have restricted our development, limited our colonies to resource-poor systems, and extracted our planet's rare materials, all while claiming it was for our protection. He gestured to another display showing a massive energy signature around Earth's solar system, one that should have been impossible for humans to generate. We've discovered your true purpose, Marcus said, his voice hardening. Earth sits on a dimensional weak point, what you call a dangerous instability. But we've learned it's not dangerous at all. You've been using it to harness dimensional energy while telling us it would destroy our world if we interfered with it. The Council's security forces, large biomechanical beings, began moving toward the platform. Marcus merely smiled. Don't bother, he said. I'm not physically here. This is a projection. Humanity began leaving 3 days ago. What you're seeing now is the recorded aftermath. The security forces passed through his image, confirming his statement. Vrex rose from his seat, actual fear visible in his ancient eyes for the first time. You don't understand the consequences, the High Counselor said, his scales now pulsing with alarmed patterns. The dimensional barrier around your star system. We understand perfectly, Marcus interrupted. We've spent decades secretly studying it while pretending to obey your restrictions. We've developed our own methods of stabilization that don't require your protection. He looked around at the representatives, many now conferring urgently with aides or communicating with their homeworlds. Too late to fix your relationship with humanity, Marcus said. We're already gone. The holographic displays updated to show Earth itself beginning to shimmer with strange energy, as if the planet and its surrounding space were becoming less solid. This isn't just a political statement, Marcus continued. We're physically removing ourselves from this region of space. Earth and all human colonies will no longer exist within the dimensional plane that the Council controls. Vrex slammed his clawed hand on his podium. This is madness. Such manipulation of dimensional barriers has been forbidden for millennia. There are reasons, yes, Marcus said, reasons you've kept to yourselves. We found the ancient records you tried to erase. We know about the civilizations that escaped your control before. We know about the free regions beyond the barriers. The projection of Marcus began to flicker as if losing power. We offered cooperation, he said, his voice starting to fade. We offered true partnership. You chose exploitation. You chose deception. Now you can watch as an entire species simply leaves. The hologram showed Earth becoming increasingly transparent, along with the moon and thousands of human vessels. What about the humans still in council space? Asked a concerned representative. Your diplomats, your traitors, you're all gone, Marcus replied. We've spent years quietly bringing our people home. Every human in council space received coded instructions months ago. The few who chose to stay have been clearly informed of the consequences. The projection was now barely visible, just a ghost-like image. Some of us argued for a more aggressive approach, Marcus said, his voice now just a whisper in the chamber. But in the end, we decided simply to go our own way. Your council can continue its rule over the species who choose to remain. Humanity chooses freedom. With those final words, the projection vanished completely. At the same moment, the holographic displays showed Earth, its moon, and all human ships disappearing from normal space in a spectacular flash of dimensional energy. The Galactic Council chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives shouted questions and demands. Security forces rushed in all directions. Communications channels overloaded with urgent messages to homeworlds. In the center of it all, High Counselor Vrex remained unnaturally still, his ancient eyes fixed on the spot where the human had stood. Alert all council forces, he finally said, his voice cutting through the chaos. Initiate dimensional tracking protocols. Find where they're going. A senior advisor approached him, speaking in low tones. High Counselor, if they've truly found a way to transport an entire planet through a dimensional barrier, then we've greatly underestimated them, Vrex finished. And we may have just lost control of the most dangerous species we've ever encountered. The council chamber, for all its chaos, was nothing compared to the panic spreading across council space. For the first time in thousands of years, a species had not just defied the council's authority, they had rendered it completely irrelevant. And somewhere beyond the dimensional barriers, humanity was already beginning its new journey, free from restrictions, free from control, and armed with knowledge the council had tried desperately to keep hidden. It was indeed too late to fix it. Too late to fix it. The Galaxy Council watches as humanity leaves. Admiral Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the EFS horizon, her hands clasped behind her back as she watched Earth shimmer and phase through the massive viewport. The blue planet, humanity's ancestral home for millions of years, was disappearing from normal space before her eyes. The process had begun 3 days ago with subtle energy fluctuations, but now the entire planet looked like a reflection in disturbed water. Behind Earth, 7,000 ships, most unknown even to Earth's own governments until recently, formed a protective formation around the planet. The fleet represented the greatest secret in human history. For decades, nations had appeared to compete while secretly building a unified escape force. Status report, Elena commanded, her voice steady despite witnessing an event unprecedented in known history. Lieutenant Commander Jackson looked up from the glowing displays surrounding his station. His dark skin reflected the blue emergency lights that pulsed throughout the bridge. The Council has deployed intercept fleets at all 7-dimensional anchors, Admiral, he reported. Their capital ships are moving to block what they believe are our transition points. Elena allowed herself a small smile. And our actual exit point? The Galmar Nebula remains clear, Jackson confirmed. They still haven't detected the true nature of Dr. Rivera's breakthrough. They're operating on outdated assumptions about dimensional transition requirements. Elena nodded. walking to the tactical display where a three-dimensional map showed Council forces spreading across the galaxy, like an immune system responding to an infection. Red markers indicated massive Council battle groups positioning themselves at specific points in space, the official, controlled dimensional weak points that the Council had maintained for millennia. "How many civilian transports remain in standard space?" she asked. A young navigation officer responded, 17% of colonial transports are still completing their transition sequence. Estimated completion time 43 minutes. Elena frowned. That was cutting it close. The Council's fastest response vessels could reach the Galmar Nebula in just over an hour, if they discovered the deception. "Maintain the decoy energy signatures at the official transition points," she ordered. "Keep them believing we need their infrastructure to cross the barrier." The massive ship hummed, with power as its revolutionary engines channeled energy from the dimensional boundary itself technology the Council had claimed was impossible for humans to develop for at least another 5 centuries. Across the galaxy, the Galactic Council had convened an emergency session. The great crystal chamber that normally housed formal proceedings with carefully planned protocols had transformed into a chaotic command center. Holographic displays showed tracking data from across Council space as the unprecedented human exodus continued. Intelligence Director Kazarn, a tall being with iridescent tentacles constantly in motion around its face, presented disturbing evidence to the assembled Council members. "Humans have been systematically stealing technology and scientific data for decades," Kazarn reported, its tentacles twitching with agitation, "but they've been hiding their true capabilities. What we monitored as their primary research programs were actually elaborate decoys." High Counselor Vrex studied the data with growing alarm. The reptilian leader's scales had faded to a dull gray, a sign of extreme stress in his species. "How many humans remain in Council space?" he asked. "None," Kazarn replied, a note of disbelief in its modulated voice. "They've recalled every citizen, explorer, and diplomat from every world in Council territory. The exodus was disguised as routine transport movements, vacation returns, and educational recalls. Our analysis suggests this withdrawal has been happening gradually for over 14 months. The Council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. "But that's not the worst news," Kazarn continued, its tentacles now almost completely still, a sure sign of grave concern. "We've detected massive energy preparations around their solar system. The dimensional signatures suggest they're not just leaving our space, they're taking their entire star system with them." An elder counselor from one of the founding species rose from her seat. The ancient avian being's feathers ruffled with indignation. "That's impossible," she declared. "Even we, with all our advancement, cannot move an entire star and its planets. The energy requirements alone are being met through methods we don't understand," Kazarn interrupted, breaking protocol in a way that showed the severity of the situation. "Their dimensional manipulation technology has somehow bypassed the normal energy constraints. They're drawing power directly from the dimensional boundary itself." Vrex stared at the projection showing the rapidly disappearing human fleet and their shimmering planet. "We've greatly underestimated them," he said quietly. "For centuries we've treated them as primitive newcomers requiring guidance and restriction. We saw their divisions and conflicts as signs of immaturity. Now I see that we were watching a performance designed specifically for our benefit." Another counselor, a being composed of crystalline structures that refracted light in complex patterns, spoke. "How did they discover the truth about the dimensional barriers? Those secrets have been protected for 20,000 years." Rex turned to the security chief, a massive biomechanical entity. "Conduct an immediate audit of all Council personnel who had contact with humans in the past century. Someone may have leaked restricted information." "There's another possibility," offered Kazarn. "The humans may have developed the insights independently. Their theoretical science is advanced at an unusual rate even under restrictions." Vrex shook his head. "No species has independently discovered dimensional transition physics without guidance. It's too complex, too counterintuitive. There must have been outside influence." The Council chamber's main display updated to show Earth almost completely phased out of normal space. The surrounding fleet of human vessels had formed a perfect geometric pattern that somehow enhanced the transition process. "Is there any way to stop them?" asked a counselor from a younger species. Vrex looked at the tactical displays showing Council forces still racing to intercept points that the humans had clearly never intended to use. "It may indeed be too late to fix it," he said grimly, "but we must try. If humans successfully establish themselves beyond the dimensional barrier with their advanced technology, other species will inevitably follow. The Council's authority will collapse." Meanwhile, deep within Jupiter's repurposed core, Dr. Imani Rivera worked frantically at a massive control hub. The dimensional transition was proceeding faster than anticipated, and the energy readings were fluctuating in concerning patterns. The Jupiter installation represented humanity's greatest engineering achievement, converting the gas giant's core into a dimensional anchor that could guide Earth and its moon through the barrier. Teams of scientists and engineers monitored thousands of parameters as the unprecedented transition continued. "We're detecting Council probes attempting to analyze our transition signature," called out Thomas, Imani's assistant. The young man's fingers flew across multiple interfaces, adjusting energy flows. "They're getting close to identifying the Galmar corridor." Imani nodded grimly. "Activate the secondary protocol. It's time to use their own technology against them." Across the galaxy, the Council's dimensional stabilizers, massive installations built at specific weak points in space-time, suddenly experienced power surges. The energy flow reversed, channeling through pathways humans had secretly built into them over decades of seemingly routine maintenance visits. In the Council chamber, alarms blared as reports flooded in from across Council space. "Dimensional stabilizers are overloading," shouted the operations director. "They're channeling energy directly to the human transition point." Vrex watched in horror as the displays showed a massive stable bridge forming, powered by the Council's own infrastructure. "Shut them down," he ordered. "Emergency protocols." "We can't," came the desperate reply. "Control systems are not responding. They've been compromised." The reptilian High Counselor stared at the tactical display, watching as the last of the human vessels disappeared into the dimensional corridor. Earth was now barely visible in normal space, a ghost-like image of what had once been the jewel of human civilization. "All this time," Rex said quietly, "we thought we were containing a dangerous, unpredictable species, but they were studying us, analyzing our weaknesses, and planning their escape." The avian elder approached him. "What happens now, Vrex? If they've truly found a way to transport their entire civilization beyond the barrier, then the age of Council dominance may be ending," Vrex replied, "and a new age of chaos is about to begin." As if confirming his words, reports began coming in from across Council space. 3 minor species had already announced their intention to follow humanity's example. Protests had broken out on dozens of worlds as the news spread. The Council had maintained order for 20,000 years by controlling access to dimensional transition technology. Too late to fix it. The Galaxy Council watches as humanity leaves Dr. Imani Rivera's hands moved in a blur across the massive control systems deep within Jupiter's repurposed core. Emergency lights flashed around her as alarm systems wailed their warnings. The dimensional transition was proceeding faster than their most optimistic calculations had predicted, but that speed came with complications. Not all colony ships had safely crossed the boundary. "We're losing stability in sectors 3 through 7, called out her assistant Thomas, his face illuminated by the red glow of critical warning displays. "The Council's dimensional anchors are still affecting our transition corridor. Their countermeasures are stronger than we anticipated." Imani nodded grimly, not taking her eyes off the complex energy flow diagrams that represented humanity's greatest scientific achievement, and potentially its greatest risk. The massive chamber they worked in had once been part of Jupiter's metallic hydrogen core. Now it housed the dimensional gateway controls that would take humanity beyond the Council's reach forever. "They built those anchors to keep us trapped," Imani said as her fingers danced across control surfaces that responded to touch, motion, and even her bioelectric field. "But they'll serve one final purpose before we're gone." She initiated a sequence that even most of the transition team didn't know existed. Deep within the code of the dimensional gateway system lay a backdoor program, one that had been placed in the Council's own systems through years of careful infiltration. "What are you doing?" Thomas asked, watching as new energy patterns formed on his displays. "Ensuring our people make it safely," Imani replied. "The Council has been using dimensional anchors to maintain their control over all species for 20 millennia. Now we're going to use them to break that control. Across the galaxy, Council dimensional stabilizers, massive installations built at specific weak points in space-time, suddenly began to overload. Their energies redirected through pathways humans had secretly built into them during routine maintenance operations that had seemed perfectly normal and authorized. The resulting power surge created a massive, stable bridge. But it also sent an unmistakable signal to the Council about humanity's true capabilities and intentions. In the emergency session chamber, Counselor Vrex watched in horror as the projection displays showed critical systems across Council space simultaneously failing. The ancient reptilian scales had faded to an ashen gray, a sign of extreme stress in his species. "How is this possible?" demanded an avian counselor, his feathers bristling with alarm. "They're overriding safety protocols on installations they shouldn't even know exist." The chamber fell silent as the main display updated to show what many had thought impossible: the entire human solar system beginning to shimmer with dimensional energy. Not just Earth and its moon as initially reported, but the sun itself and all its planets were in the process of transitioning. "They can't be attempting this," whispered the avian counselor, his voice hollow with disbelief. "Moving an entire star system will tear reality apart. The energy requirements alone, that's what we've told them for 2 centuries, interrupted Vrex, his ancient eyes fixed on the display. "But it seems they've learned the truth. It's only dangerous because we lack the knowledge to control it properly." He turned to his senior advisors, the most trusted members of the Council's inner circle. "How long have they been developing this technology?" "Our intelligence suggested they were at least a century away from even theoretical understanding of dimensional physics." The answer came from an unexpected source. A human-like figure stepped forward from the shadows at the edge of the chamber. The being's appearance was remarkably similar to the humans they had been discussing, but as it approached, its synthetic skin began peeling away in places, revealing an entirely different biology beneath. The Council members recoiled in shock as they recognized Ambassador Krell, one of their most trusted diplomatic representatives, transforming before their eyes. "My people have been helping them for 80 years, announced the shapeshifter, its voice changing from the smooth tones of a Council diplomat to something altogether different. "Ever since we discovered your lies about the dimensional barriers." Vrex's hand moved to the security alert on his podium, but he paused as the full implications hit him. "The shifting collective has betrayed us?" he asked, naming one of the oldest species under Council control, a species known for their natural ability to alter their appearance and infiltrate other societies. Krell smiled, its features now fully transformed to reveal its true nature. "No, Counselor. We've simply chosen a more honest alliance. The humans offered partnership while you demanded obedience. They shared knowledge freely while you hoarded it." The chamber erupted in chaos as security forces rushed in, but Krell seemed unconcerned. "You're too late," the shapeshifter said calmly. "There are thousands of us among the humans now, helping guide their transition, and thousands more among your own ranks working to ensure you cannot stop them." On the main display, Earth's sun flared with dimensional energy, the effect spreading to encompass the entire solar system in a shimmering cocoon of distorted spacetime. Back in the Jupiter Control Center, Imani watched with a mixture of pride and anxiety as the system reached the point of no return. "All colonial vessels are now within the transition envelope," Thomas reported. "Council pursuit craft are being pushed back by the dimensional wave." Imani nodded, relief washing over her. "Begin final sequence. Total transition in 3 minutes." The massive engines deep within Jupiter's core, technology that had been developed in secret for decades, channeled unprecedented amounts of energy. The gas giant's atmosphere swirled with strange patterns as the dimensional field strengthened. "We're receiving communications from the shifting allies," Thomas said. "Their agents in the Council confirm that our diversion worked." "The Council is in disarray." Imani allowed herself a small smile. "Send the final signal to our people still in Council space. It's time for them to make their move." Across thousands of worlds under Council control, carefully placed human agents and their shapeshifter allies activated hidden technologies, not weapons of destruction, but something far more dangerous to the Council's authority. Information transmitters that began broadcasting the truth about dimensional travel, about the Council's millennia of deception, about the free regions that existed beyond the barriers. In the council chamber, emergency reports flooded in from across their territory. Frex listened with growing horror as the extent of the human operation became clear. This isn't just an exodus, he realized aloud. It's a revolution. A younger counselor approached him, panic evident in their movements. We must offer terms. Whatever they want, resources, autonomy, even technology sharing. We cannot allow them to destabilize the entire council system. Frex shook his head slowly. You don't understand. Humans aren't leaving because of our restrictions. They're leaving because they've discovered what lies beyond the dimensional barriers, what we've been hiding from all species for millennia. Which is? The younger counselor asked. Frex stared at the display showing Earth's sun beginning to phase out of normal space, taking its planets and humanity with it. Freedom, he said simply. The truth that the dimensional barriers don't separate dangerous zones of space as we've claimed. They separate controlled space from free space, regions where the first council established control from regions where they failed to do so. The implications hung in the air as the counselors absorbed this revelation. The first species that escaped our predecessors. Control established thriving civilizations. Beyond the barriers, Frex continued. We've spent 20,000 years ensuring no one else could join them. And now the humans have not only found a way, they're showing others how to follow. On the Jupiter control station, the final countdown had begun. The entire human solar system vibrated with dimensional energy as the transition reached its climax. 30 seconds to complete transition, announced. Thomas Imani watched the displays with intense concentration. Everything they had worked for, everything humanity had secretly prepared for generations came down to this moment. If their calculations were wrong, if the Council's countermeasures were stronger than anticipated, they could lose everything. 20 seconds. Throughout the solar system, billions of humans in protective shelters waited with a mixture of fear and hope. They had voted for this escape, chosen to leave known space rather than remain under the Council's restrictive control. But the reality of such an unprecedented journey was terrifying. 10 seconds. In the Council chamber, Frex gave orders to the few ships that might still have a chance to interfere. Target their dimensional stabilizers. Disrupt the transition field. We cannot allow them to complete this. 5 seconds. Thomas looked to Imani. The Council's deployed their dimensional disruptors. They're trying to collapse our corridor. Imani nodded. Just as we expected. Activate the final protocol. 3, 2, 1. The Jupiter. Too late to fix it. The Galaxy Council. Watches as humanity leaves. The Council's most advanced fleet pushed through the unstable dimensional corridor, their vessels straining against forces they were never designed to withstand. Alarms blared across the command deck of the flagship Eternal Vigilance, as structural integrity warnings flashed on multiple screens. The ship shuddered violently as another wave of dimensional turbulence hit. Grand Admiral Thrix, the highest-ranking military commander in Council space, stood firm despite the chaos around him. His forearms gripped support rails as his exoskeleton creaked under the pressure. 6 decades of military service had not prepared him for this mission. No one in Council history had ever attempted to pursue a fleeing species through an unauthorized dimensional corridor. Status. Report, he demanded. His voice steady despite the situation. Hull integrity at 67% and dropping. Admiral, reported his second-in-command. 3 support vessels have already turned back. 5 more are reporting critical systems failures. Thrix nodded grimly. Of the 50 ships that had entered the corridor, only 32 remained. But he could not abort the mission. The stakes were too high. We cannot allow them to establish themselves beyond our reach, he told his assembled commanders through the fleet-wide communication system. If the humans succeed in relocating their entire system and establishing a foothold in uncontrolled space, other species will follow. The Council's authority will collapse. The dimensional corridor twisted around them, a tunnel of distorted space-time created by the humans' unexpected technological breakthrough. Energy patterns that should have been impossible rippled along the walls of the corridor. How did they achieve this? Asked his tactical officer, her compound eyes reflecting the strange light of the corridor. Our best scientists said this level of dimensional manipulation was centuries beyond human capability. They deceived us, Thrix replied simply. We saw what they wanted us to see. A divided, struggling species barely managing interplanetary travel. Meanwhile, they were building this. He gestured to the corridor around them. The greatest dimensional engineering project since the Barrier Wars. His communications officer interrupted with urgent news. Admiral, we've detected something ahead. Energy signatures consistent with defensive systems. Thrix leaned forward, studying the sensor readings. They've had time to prepare defenses, he mused. Interesting. They anticipated pursuit. Meanwhile, in the transitioning Earth fleet, Commander Diego Ortega directed defense operations from the battle carrier Defiance. The massive ship trailed behind the civilian transports, its weapons systems fully powered despite the energy demands of the dimensional transition. Admiral Vasquez, Diego called through the secure communication channel. Council pursuit fleet detected entering our dimensional wake. Estimated time to intercept 3 hours. On the main bridge of the EFS horizon, Admiral Elena Vasquez studied the tactical display with concern. The civilian transports hadn't all made it through the final barrier yet. Thousands of vessels carrying millions of humans were still vulnerable. Deploy the resonance mines, she ordered. Let's give our people time to complete the transition. Diego nodded. Launching defensive measures now. The battle carrier released hundreds of small devices that scattered throughout the dimensional corridor behind them. To casual observation, they looked like simple navigational beacons, which is exactly what the Council ships would assume they were. Grand Admiral Thrix's fleet encountered the first line of human defenses 6 minutes later. His lead ships detected the small devices and initially moved to avoid them, assuming they were transition markers. Analysis suggests these are navigational aids, his sensor officer reported, likely left to guide additional human ships through the corridor. Thrix frowned. Something felt wrong about the situation. Probe one of them with a remote drone. Don't approach with main vessels yet. The small drone approached the nearest device and scanned it. Seconds later, the drone and the device both vanished in a flash of dimensional energy. What happened? Thrix demanded. The device activated upon scan, reported the tactical officer. It's not a beacon, it's some kind of dimensional amplifier. It increased the local turbulence by 300%. Before Thrix could order his fleet to retreat, 3 more devices activated, creating a cascading effect throughout the corridor. The dimensional turbulence intensified exponentially. Council ships began breaking apart as their hulls compressed and expanded across multiple dimensional states. Metal twisted in impossible ways as fundamental physical properties fluctuated wildly. This technology, Thrix gasped as his flagship shuddered violently, systems failing across all decks. It's beyond anything in our records. His tactical officer stared at the readings in disbelief. They're not just using the dimensional corridor for transit, they're weaponizing the dimensional fabric itself. The eternal vigilance cracked along its primary hull as the dimensional forces threatened to tear it apart. Emergency bulkheads slammed into place as atmosphere vented from multiple decks. Full retreat, Thrix ordered. All vessels withdraw immediately. But it was too late for many of his ships. Of the 32 vessels that had encountered the human defenses, only 14 managed to turn back. The rest were lost to the dimensional chaos, not destroyed in the conventional sense, but phased out of normal spacetime, their crews trapped in dimensional limbo. In the council chamber, the remaining representatives watched the unfolding disaster on their main display. The mood had shifted from outrage to stunned silence as the extent of humanity's capabilities became clear. A younger counselor approached High Counselor Vrex, who sat motionless watching the destruction of their most advanced fleet. We must offer terms, the younger counselor suggested. Whatever they want, resources, autonomy, even technology sharing. We cannot allow this to continue. Vrex shook his head slowly. You still don't understand. Humans aren't leaving because of our restrictions. They're leaving because they've discovered what lies beyond the dimensional barriers. What we've been hiding from all species for millennia. Which is, Vrex stared at the display showing Earth's sun beginning to phase out of normal space entirely. The dimensional transition nearly complete. Freedom, he said quietly. The truth that the Council doesn't protect species from dimensional dangers. We protect our authority from species that might challenge it. In the transitioning fleet, Admiral Vasquez received confirmation that the Council pursuit had been halted. The resonance mines worked, Diego reported. Council forces are retreating. We've bought enough time to complete the transition. Elena nodded, relief washing over her face. Status of civilian transports. Final group now approaching the terminus. All vessels will be through in 17 minutes. Elena turned her attention to the dimensional readings. The transition of Earth-Sun was the most complex part of the operation. Moving a star through dimensional barriers had never been attempted in recorded history. If their calculations were wrong, the consequences would be catastrophic. Dr. Rivera reports solar transition is stable, Diego added, as if reading her thoughts. The containment field is holding. We're going to make it, Admiral. Elena allowed herself a small smile. After decades of planning, years of secret preparation, and months of carefully coordinated exodus, humanity was about to achieve what the Council had deemed impossible: complete freedom from their control. Begin final transition sequence for military vessels, she ordered. All ships prepare for dimensional shift in 20 minutes. As the last human vessels prepared to leave Council space forever, the communication system suddenly activated. A direct transmission from the Council itself, specifically from High Counselor Vrex. Admiral Vasquez, the reptilian's voice filled the bridge. I know you can hear me. Before you complete your transition, I ask only that you listen. Elena hesitated, then nodded to her communications officer. Put him through. Visual only from our side. The main display showed the ancient reptilian counselor. His scales had faded to a dull gray, a sign of extreme stress or age in his species. You've won, Admiral, Vrex said without preamble. Your exodus is succeeding. Your people will soon be beyond our reach, but there are things you should know about what awaits you. More Council deception? Elena asked coldly. No. The truth, finally, Vrex replied. The regions beyond the barriers are not empty, Admiral. There are civilizations there, ancient ones that escaped Council control during the barrier wars 20,000 years ago. Elena nodded. We know. Our shifting allies told us everything. That's why we're leaving, to join those free civilizations rather than remain under your control. Vrex's ancient eyes widened slightly. Then you don't know everything, Admiral. Those civilizations are not what the shifters have led you to believe. They're not peaceful havens of freedom. Elena cut the transmission with a gesture. Enough Council lies. We've heard them for too long. Diego looked concerned. What if he was telling the truth? What if there's something about these free regions that our allies haven't told us? Then we'll Too late to fix it. The Galaxy Council watches as humanity leaves. The dimensional transition completed with a final surge of energy that rippled across space-time. Earth-Sun fully materialized in unexplored territory, a region beyond the Council's influence that no Council-controlled species had seen in 20,000 years. Around the star, the planets of humanity's home system arranged themselves in their familiar orbits, now accompanied by thousands of new habitats and vessels. From the observation deck of Lunar Command, Admiral Elena Vasquez watched as the shimmering effects of the transition faded from Earth's atmosphere. The blue planet looked remarkably unchanged despite having just undergone the most dramatic journey in human history, physically moved from one region of the universe to another through dimensional barriers that the Council had claimed were impenetrable. Transition complete, Admiral, reported her aide. All planetary bodies are stable in their new positions. Dimensional readings are normalizing. Elena nodded, allowing herself a moment of profound relief. They had gambled everything on this exodus, the combined resources of an entire civilization, the lives of billions of people, the future of humanity itself. And they had succeeded. Begin full-spectrum scans of surrounding space, she ordered. Let's see what our new neighborhood looks like. On Earth below, billions of people emerged from protective shelters, looking up at a sky filled with unfamiliar stars. The transition had succeeded, but the cost had been high. Initial reports indicated that millions were missing or dead from the dangerous passage. Entire coastal regions had experienced catastrophic tidal effects as the moon's gravitational influence fluctuated during transition. Cities had been damaged, infrastructure compromised, but humanity had escaped. After centuries of Council control, restrictions, and exploitation, the species was finally free to determine its own fate. In the newly established Human Alliance headquarters on Luna, Admiral Vasquez met with leaders from Earth's nations and colonies. The large circular chamber had been built specifically for this moment, the first gathering of human leadership in their new home. The Council's pursuit fleet has been neutralized, she reported to the assembled representatives. The dimensional corridor has collapsed behind us. For all practical purposes, we are beyond their reach. President Kai, the elected leader of the alliance that had formed specifically to coordinate the exodus, stood to address the gathering. His tall, lean figure commanded attention despite his simple clothing. But they'll find other ways to reach us eventually, he stated. The Council has ruled for 20,000 years by preventing exactly what we've just done. They won't simply accept our departure. Elena nodded in agreement. Then we must be ready. Our defensive capabilities are substantial, but we need to establish proper perimeters, early warning systems, and... She was interrupted by an urgent communication. A young officer entered the chamber and whispered something to Elena's aide, who immediately looked alarmed. We're detecting multiple energy signatures approaching from the outer system, the aide announced. Non-human configurations. Unknown design. The chamber erupted in concerned murmurs. Had the Council somehow followed them? Was this a trap? President Kai raised his hand for silence. Show us. The central holographic display activated, showing several vessels approaching from the direction of what would have been the Kuiper Belt in their original solar system. The ships were unlike anything in Council records, organic-looking constructs that seemed to flow through space rather than simply move through it. They're hailing us, reported the communications officer. Audio and visual compatible with our systems. Kai exchanged looks with Elena, then nodded. Let's meet our neighbors. The display shifted to show a being unlike any Council species. It appeared vaguely humanoid, but with a translucent quality to its skin that revealed complex patterns of light flowing beneath the surface. When it spoke, its voice had a melodic quality that the translation system struggled to fully capture. Greetings, humans of Earth, the being said. We've been expecting you. I am Emissary Liren of the Free Worlds Confederation. Welcome to liberated space. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. They were not alone in this region beyond the Council's reach. And these beings had been expecting them. How did you know we were coming? Kai asked carefully. The being's internal lights pulsed in what might have been amusement. Your shifter allies contacted us months ago. They've been our covert partners for millennia. We've been preparing for your arrival. Elena stepped forward. You're from the civilizations that escaped during the barrier wars? Some of us, Liren confirmed. Others evolved here naturally, never knowing Council rule. Still others found their way here as you did, by discovering the truth and choosing freedom. The chamber doors suddenly opened to admit representatives from 7 previously unknown species, beings that had not been present during the transition. They moved with confidence into the human gathering. These are your welcoming committee, Liren explained. Representatives of the free worlds who have been hiding among you for years, helping prepare for this moment. A being that had perfectly resembled a human diplomat shed its disguise, revealing a crystalline form beneath. I am Terax of the Luminous Collective. We've been working alongside your scientists for decades, helping perfect the transition technology. Another human transformed into a being of swirling gases contained within a barely visible energy field. The Shifting Collective is not the only shape-shifting species in the galaxy. We are the Mistwalkers, and we've been observing Council space through disguised agents for centuries. President Kai absorbed this information, then turned to Elena with a questioning look. She nodded slightly, confirming that this development aligned with certain classified aspects of their plan. We've prepared territories for your settlement, Liren continued. Resource-rich systems within safe distance of your current position. The Free Worlds Confederation operates on principles of mutual aid and non-interference, very different from the Council's control model. And what do you expect in return? Kai asked directly. Your unique perspective, Liren replied without hesitation. For millennia, the Free Worlds have developed in isolation from Council space. Your people bring fresh ideas, different technologies, new cultural perspectives. And perhaps most importantly, you know the current state of the Council better than anyone. That knowledge is invaluable. In the Galactic Council's now half-empty chamber, High Counselor Vrex faced a formal vote of no confidence. Many representatives had abandoned the emergency session, returning to their homeworlds to deal with growing unrest as news of humanity's successful escape spread. "You've lost humanity and the shifting collective in one day," accused a former ally, an amphibious being whose species had been among the Council's founding members. "And now reports say the Tergellan Concordat is also preparing to leave. 3 species lost under your leadership." Vrex stood firm despite the hostility directed at him. His ancient scales had faded to a dull gray, not just from stress now, but from a deep weariness. "They were never meant to discover the truth," he said quietly. "About what really exists beyond the barriers, about the ancient civilizations that thrived without our interference." "Then perhaps the truth should never have been hidden," replied another counselor. "Perhaps the Council's original sin was believing we had the right to control other species' development in the first place." The chamber fell silent at this heretical statement. For 20,000 years, the Council's authority had been considered absolute, its wisdom unquestionable. Now, in the space of days, everything was being challenged. A projection activated on the main display, an unauthorized transmission broadcasting across Council space despite attempts to block it. It showed a human figure standing before billions of people and their new allies. President Kai addressed not just his own species, but all who might be watching across the dimensional barriers. "For too long, the Council claimed to protect us while keeping us confined. Today we've broken those chains, not just for humanity, but for all who wish to join us." The camera pulled back to reveal representatives of the free world standing alongside humans, a visual representation of species cooperation without Council oversight. "To those still under Council control," Kai continued, his voice strong and clear, "there is another way. The barriers can be crossed. The Council's authority is based on deception, not protection. We will leave our beacons to guide you. Freedom awaits." Vrex watched silently as the transmission continued, knowing it was being viewed on thousands of worlds despite the Council's best efforts to suppress it. After 20,000 years, the absolute authority they had maintained through control of information was crumbling. "What do we do now?" asked a younger counselor, genuine fear in their voice. Vrex considered the question carefully before answering. "We adapt or we perish." The Council was formed in the aftermath of the dimensional wars to prevent the chaos of unregulated expansion. But over millennia, we became what we originally fought against, controllers rather than guardians.